Hi guys, we are just starting our lower back and hip focus flow. So you're going to need a small TheraBand and a longer one. If you've not got one, don't worry because you can do it all without. If you've got one, great. Come and lay on your backs. Right, so feet hip distance apart. We want to work on our connection, posture and breath first of all. So we'll start at our feet and we're just going to start to just play with the weight, just shift the weight from side to side. So just shuffling the weight from side to side between the right and left foot, and then I just want you to pause where you feel like you've got equal connection between the left foot and the floor and the right foot and the floor. So that wants to be equal from side to side. And then you're going to think about where you're feeling that connection. Are you feeling it on the outside of the foot or on the inside of the foot? If you're feeling it more on the outside, I just want you to think about trying to get that inner arch connected with the floor by pushing the big toe down into the floor, keeping the knees pointed towards the ceiling and keeping that outer arch on the floor. So what we don't want to do is just try and get that inner arch to the floor and just let the knees collapse inwards. So we want to try and keep everything in a neutral position. If you're feeling more on the inside of the foot, you're going to try and get the outer arch down to the floor, but keep that big toe connected. So we want to create that sort of tripod in the foot. So from back to front and from side to side of each foot wants to be equal pressure on the floor. So once we've got our foot connection, you're going to work up to your lumbosacral junction, and we want to start by just trying to tilt the pelvis into this forward position, into an anterior tilt, and in doing so we're going to lift the lower back off the floor. So we're going to go into lumbar extension and then we're going to tilt the pelvis backwards into a posterior tilt, and the lower back's going to lower towards the floor into lumbar flexion. So just go between those two movements, anterior, posterior, lumbar extension, lumbar flexion, tilting the pelvis backwards and forwards. And then I want you to pause in the midpoint of those two end ranges. So your lower back and pelvis should now be in a neutral position. And the way you can check it is if you put your hands behind your backs, and if you've got a gap underneath your back, then you won't be in neutral. And if you're absolutely caved into the floor, you won't be in neutral. Your back wants to be flat on the floor so that you can't get that hand underneath, but it doesn't want to be indented into the floor. And now you should be feeling more connection underneath the lumbosacral junction. So then we're going to work our way to the TL junction, and you're going to think of your ribcage and pelvis like the pages of a book. So we don't want the pages to be open, we want to close those pages. So we're bringing the ribcage and pelvis into connection with each other. If you've got this open book appearance, if you have a feel into your ribs, you'll feel rib flaring, so they'll be lifting upwards towards your head, and you might have some lumbar extension. So we're going to try and close the pages of the book, and by doing that you should feel a bit more connected underneath your TL junction. So then you're going to go up to your shoulder blades, and again they want to be equal from side to side. So just shuffle the weight from side to side until you feel like you've got better balance between the right and left shoulder blade. And then you're going to work on your shoulder position. So the shoulders themselves want to be in a neutral position. So what we don't want is for the shoulders to be lifted up by the ears and pushed forwards. We're going to try and bring the shoulders down towards the floor. So we're retracting the shoulders, but we're not pulling them down completely into the floor. and you're going to externally rotate and depress, like you're trying to pull the shoulder blade down towards the back pocket on the same side. And by doing that, you'll feel those muscles underneath and round the back of the shoulder activate. So once we've got that, we're going to go up to the head. The back of the head is going to push straight down towards the floor. And in doing so, you will feel those muscles at the front of the neck switch on. We want to try and avoid going into neck extension or neck flexion. Okay, so we've got our connection now. I want you to put one hand on the chest, one hand on the tummy, and we're going to work on getting the breath in the right order. So as you take a breath in, the hand on the tummy is going to lift. And as you take your breath out, the hand on the tummy is going to lower. Hand on the chest doesn't want to move anywhere. So really trying to concentrate on just getting the breath in the right order. So thinking about what's going on, try and switch your mind off from everything else and just focus on your breath. Focus on that hand trying to lift on the breath in and lowering on the breath out. Just do a couple more breaths, just working on that, getting it in the right order. So once that breath's in the right order, you're going to put your hands around your waist. And we're now going to try and create our 360 breath. So as you take a breath in, what you want to feel is all the muscles around the abdominal wall expand outwards. So to try and get a feel for what that feels like, you're going to cough and feel those muscles expand, and then try now to visualize all those muscles and think about what they're doing, and think about those muscles expanding and lifting your hands away the same way they just did when you coughed. If you need to cough a few times to just wake the muscles up, to let your brain know where the muscles are, then that's fine. Cough as many times as you want. So breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, through pursed lips. Imagine you're blowing through a straw. And this wants to be equal from front to back and from side to side. So if there's an area that you're struggling with, really try and hone in on that area. Give it a poke, give it a prod. Really wake those muscles up. And just focus on those muscles expanding and pushing your hands away. Just do a couple more breaths. So now we've got the breath in the right order, we're going to just work on, and we've got the 360 breath, we're going to work on our brace. So the brace is an outward push. It's not a clench, it's not a tense, and you're not sucking your belly button in. So you're going to create your 360 breath, and then before you take your breath out, you're going to create an outward push, like you're imagining that you're about to fart. And then try not to let all the muscles relax as you breathe out. And then you're going to try and keep that activation now as you're breathing in and out. So day to day, you're just going to need your 360 breath, but when you're doing things that need more stability, when you're carrying heavy things or lifting awkwardly shaped things, you're going to need a bit more stabilisation for that, so you're going to need to know how to create your brace and your breath brace. And the amount of brace that you need will vary depending on what you're doing. One more breath. So we're just going to start with a little bit of like hip mobility, hip stretching. So just want you to bring your feet in towards your bum, put them together and then just drop them out to the side. Try and let your bum muscles relax as well. And just make sure that we're keeping that neutral position of the lower back. So try not to let the back arch as we're bringing the legs out to the side. And just let the muscles in the glutes go. And just think about your breath. And just think about letting your legs just drop out to the side. Just trying to get as much movement, as much external rotation as possible. And then just bring one of your legs up towards the ceiling, so knee towards the ceiling, and then you're just going to bring the leg over to the opposite side. Grab hold of the top knee with your hand and just twist and feel that rotation through the spine. So feel a nice stretch through the lower back. And then bring that knee back round, over to the other side, and take the other leg over. So you're rotating round and you're going to feel that stretch down the opposite side of the lower back. Bring the knee back in, over into the middle. Pull one of your legs up into the chest and straighten the other leg. So we're going into hip flexion. So a nice deep hip flexion, that side. And then try and take it out to the side at the same time. So you should feel a bit of a stretch down the inside of the thigh. Again, try and keep your lower backs on the floor. Put that down, do the other side. So knee up to the chest first. And then take it out to the side. Feel that stretch down that inner thigh. Bring both legs up, so you've got both hips into flexion and out to the side. Bring your hands down into the inside of the legs and use your arms to kind of get a bit more stretch. So dropping the knees to the side, so you'll feel that more in that inner thigh now. Again, keep your lower back on the floor and just focusing on your breath. Take one foot down and then drop. So we're going to go into like a figure 4 position, so we're stretching the bum muscle. So one leg's going to sort of come down and the opposite's going to go over that thigh, and you're just going to stretch your bum muscle. So we're just loosening the hips off a little bit. Swap sides. And then put the feet down. And then we're just going to do some hip flexions. So single hip flexions, lift one leg into the air, lower down, and the opposite. So just do alternating legs, controlling that movement through the hips, making sure that we don't drop into an anterior tilt and lumbar extension. So we're needing to create a little bit more of a brace at the minute, so more than you would be doing through just laying on your back with your legs down. So we're just creating a bit more of a brace. And then, depending on how your back's feeling, if your back's feeling okay at the minute, you're going to start to lift both of your legs. If your lower back's a little bit not too clever at the minute, you might just want to carry on doing your single leg taps and lifts. So you're going to need more of a brace this time, so that you don't end up going into that anterior tilt and lumbar extension. So this movement, we just want to feel this movement coming from the hips. Keep breathing 360, keep creating that brace. And then just bring your legs up into your 3-month supine position. You want your feet higher than your knees over your hips at 90 degrees, and we want them to be knees wider than the hips, so you're creating external rotation and abduction in the hip. And just hold that position. If you need to put your legs up on a ball or on a chair, that's absolutely fine. And we're just focusing on that 360-degree breath, creating a nice smooth cylinder around the abdominal wall. So you don't want to feel like you're tensing and shaking through the abs. And then we're just going to start to do some hip rotations. So you can either do hip rotations with your hips in this flexed position. So we're just going to do one leg at a time, going outwards and back round, and then the other. Or you can straighten your leg, grab hold of the TheraBand. So if you've got something holding onto the TheraBand, you're creating a bit more stabilisation in the hip. And just draw circles with that leg. So circles outwards. You can do this without a TheraBand as well. You can just draw circles without. But using the TheraBand just makes it a little bit easier. And then you want to draw circles back round, so you're going inwards. And these want to be nice and smooth, controlled movements, so you don't want it to be all juddery. And we were trying to make sure that this movement is coming from the hip, the torso, the pelvis, the spine, everything here in the midline wants to stay still. This movement is just coming from the hip. And then swap sides if you've not already swapped sides. You might find this easier on one side than the other. You don't have to draw big circles, it can just be little circles if they're more controlled. Spend a little bit more time on this leg. And we try and make sure that the lower back is in that neutral position. And then put the band to one side. Just bring your knees into your chest, give your hip flexors a little rest. And then feet back into your 3-month supine. Fingertips up to the ceiling. You're going to lift your head. Look to the direction you're going to turn, and then you're going to start to roll. And we want to make sure we have our Lego body. So shoulders, pelvis are moving at the same time, and we're controlling that movement, so we're not just collapsing onto the side and throwing ourselves back. So we're trying to create that rotational stability. Use the top hand, imagine you're trying to reach for something. And when you are rolling as well, try and keep a nice straight spine so that when you lie on your side, you don't just end up collapsing into it like a banana. Just do a couple more. And then you're going to roll onto one side, up into your lower oblique sit, and just going to do some hip rotations. So in this lower oblique sit, make sure you've got a nice active shoulder, your spine's nice and straight, and we're just going to rotate into that hip, creating sort of internal rotation, and then rotating backwards. And in. So we're just working on that hip mobility at the minute. Make sure you've got your Lego body again. So shoulders and pelvis rotating at the same time. Keep working on your breathing, 360 breaths. Do one more. And then you're going to rotate your body round. So you're going to put both forearms down on the floor. And you hopefully might be able to feel this in your lower back. And just hold this position. And again, just work on that 360 breath. And if you've got that stretch in your lower back and you do your 360 breath, you'll feel those muscles stretching even more. deep breaths into the belly, into the back, into the sides. Come out of that position. If you've got your band, put it around your knees. And then you're going to get your knees on top of each other, lift your bum off the floor, and we're just going to do some rotation. So we rotate round, again we've got our Lego body, and then as we rotate back, we're going to open the legs. And then rotate round, and up and open the legs. Again, try and keep nice and straight through the spine. Just do a couple more. Okay, lower down. Come up into your high oblique sit. Keep the band around your knees. Pull your legs into your mermaid position. And then rotate round, so knees up to the ceiling. And then rotate the other way. So keep the band around your knees. So I've got it above my knees because otherwise it just flicks down your legs. So we're creating that internal, external rotation in the hips. Try and make sure you're nice and tall when you're in the middle and when you're in your oblique sits. And then come round the other way. Down into your lower oblique sit. And then keep the band around your knees. And we'll do the same, so make sure we're nice and straight in the spine, shoulder nice and active, lift your bum off the floor, and rotate. Make sure when you rotate round, you don't overextend, so you don't want to go into that rib flare and lumbar extension, so we're keeping the ribs and pelvis connected. Just do a couple more of these. Come down, take the band away. Again, just do some hip rotations, so just folding on the hip and opening the hip up, fold. Make sure we keep that activation in the shoulder. And last one. Bring both forearms down onto the floor and twist into it and breathe. Focus on breathing into those muscles in the back and in the sides. Breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. Last breath. Come up into your high oblique sit again. Bring the back leg forwards. And then make sure you've got full hand and foot connection. Lift your bum off the floor. Rotate round into your bear position, down into your quadruped, and then down onto your low quadruped. So knees just outside the hips. Make sure we've got the neutral lower back, so tilt your pelvis backwards and forwards until you find you've got that midpoint. And then we're going to just try and work on getting our spines nice and long. So what we don't want is to be rounded in the upper back. So we're going to try and bring that upper back down towards the floor without going into that anterior tilt. So the pelvis wants to stay where it is, the lower back wants to stay where it is, and we're just pulling the upper back towards the floor. Push the floor away with your forearms, keep the shoulders active, and just work on your breath. And start to hinge the hips backwards. So we're flexing the hip, keeping that neutral position of the lower back and pelvis. So as you come back, what you don't want to happen is to start to go into a flexion position with your spine and a posterior tilt with your pelvis. And then as you go forwards, you don't want to go into that lumbar extension and anterior tilt. So we're trying to control the movement so that it's just happening through the extremities and the spine stays still and the pelvis stays still. So we're creating hip flexion and hip extension. And then if you come right back, so your lower back probably will flex a bit now, into a really deep prayer stretch, and just focus on your breath and feel the breath in the back. Couple more breaths in this position. Then take your legs, knees a little bit wider, so we're going into like a really deep frog stretch position. Again, keeping that neutral lower back, so don't let the pelvis tilt. So nice and long through the spine, so you'll feel this stretching in the groin and in the inner thigh. And again, we're just going to hinge the hips backwards and forwards, keeping that neutral pelvis, neutral lower back. Do one more, back and forwards. Bring your knees together, come up into your quadruped position. Find your neutral spine. And then push the floor away, keeping the shoulders active. And what you're going to do, we're going to take one leg out to the side and then extend it backwards and pull it back in. So if you're taking your left leg out and back, your weight's going to transfer into your left hand and your right knee. And we want to try and make sure that the body stays still. So leg out to the side, extend the hip, so it's going backwards, and then pull it in. When you're taking your leg backwards, make sure that you don't just extend the lower back. So what you don't want to do is take it back and just go into lumbar extension. So we're trying to create this extension through the glute. So out to the side and extend. And maybe just swap from side to side. So if your right leg's going out, your left knee's going to press into the floor, right hand. And extend. So we're creating big movements in the hips, big controlled movements. If you want to go the opposite way, so you'll be extending first, out to the side, in, do a few of those. Just do one more each side. Okay, back down into your quadruped. Make sure you've got your neutral. And then I want you to curl your feet underneath. Push the floor away with your hands. Lift your knees off the floor into your bear. And then just hold this position and breathe into it. And then just start to hinge the hips backwards. So you're flexing your hips, keep the knees bent, and then walk your hands back into your squat. And I want you to try and get into a nice deep squat. So deeper than you would normally go. So you're just gonna go round into it and bring your knees inside your elbows inside your knees, and just try and get a nice deep squat. And you'll feel that stretch in the lower back. And just focus on your breath. One more breath. And then just come up into a more active squat before you come up into a stand. And then we're just going to go into a squat again. So come down and up, down, up. Keeping control of the pelvis and lower back. Nice and steady. And then come down into your squat. Hands down onto the floor. Take one leg forwards into a nice deep hip flexor stretch. And just feel that into the groin area, into the front of that back thigh, front of that groin. And then curl that back foot under, bring that foot back, and then take the other one forwards. Into that nice deep hip flexor stretch. And then come up into your high kneel. We'll just do some high kneel stands. So not too narrow. Make sure your foot's out to the side, pelvis level with the floor, neutral lower back and pelvis. And then we're just going to stand out of that position. And then take the leg back, make sure the pelvis is level with the floor. Make sure the hips are facing forwards and slowly lower down. Just in your own time, but try and go nice and slow. Make sure you don't rush this movement. The slower you go, the more controlled it will be, and the better muscle activation, the stronger your muscles will get. And then with this next one, you're going to come down into your high kneel. Come round into your squat. So like a deep squat, sumo squat. And then bring the knee back down to that same side. And then round. So opening the hips up nice and wide. And down. And then wide. And down. Wide. Down. Do two more on this side. Then you're going to do some on the other side, and then we'll finish off with high kneel to stand on the other side. So start doing some on this side now. So down into your high kneel, back round into your big sumo squat. Very nearly done. Just do another couple on this side. Okay, onto the opposite high kneel. Again, not too narrow, foot to the side, pelvis level with the floor, neutral lower back. And we're just going to stand. Slowly down, up, just in your own time, making sure that the knee stays tracking second and third toe, and pelvis doesn't shoot out to the side. Just do a few more. Okay, last one. And we're done. Hope you all enjoyed that, and we'll see you again soon. Bye bye.